So, hello to everybody that is currently in the process of developing a practice profile for the purpose of making the initiative that you're currently engaged with knowable, teachable, doable, and accessible. The intent of the professional learning modules that we have been engaged with over the last several months have really been to add value to your work. And practice profiles in particular can really be helpful in informing how you communicate your initiative, how you train on your initiative, how you coach your initiative, and how you evaluate your initiative. So I would like to provide a brief example of how the Exceptional Children's Division has used a practice profile for the development of an LEA Self Assessment tool that allows us to better align our professional learning infrastructure to specific needs identified by LEAs. Fairly recently, the Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP, at the U.S. Department of Education has made a fairly substantial shift in their accountability model, moving from predominantly a compliance-based focus to a focus on results and outcomes for students with disabilities. As a result of that, they required states to do an in-depth analysis of student needs and state infrastructure and identify a single metric that they would report on annually, a metric that was tied to some result. The metric that North Carolina determined would be the most salient to report on after this data analysis was 5-year cohort graduation rates for students with disabilities. And the reason that we determined that that was what we should focus on was a long-standing and persistent gap in graduation between students with disabilities and their non-disabled peers. And knowing our vision and our mission and what we want for kids when they are leaving our classrooms to be college, career, community ready, we knew that this was a very important outcome and one that we could improve results for students. So concurrently, as we were making a determination about the metric we wanted to focus on, we were also doing an analysis of potential causes for why that persistent and stubborn gap existed. And what we found was a really complex picture, and a picture that really yielded this idea that there was no one single root cause or one single evidence-based practice that we could implement across the state and achieve the results that we wanted to. So that's where a practice profile comes in. Following the conclusion of not being able to address a single root cause, the EC division engaged in an iterative process of developing a practice profile for the purpose of operationally defining comprehensive special education services that support graduation rates for students with disabilities. And in doing so, EC staff and a whole host of internal and external stakeholders ended up identifying 6 core elements that included policy compliance and monitoring, fiscal management, IEP development, implementation, and outcomes, problem solving for improvement, research-based instruction and practices, and finally communication and collaboration. So from there, the team further defined and refined critical components that further operationalized each of our core elements. And in doing so, it resulted in an LEA self-assessment tool. So in addition to creating the self-assessment tool based on the practice profile we developed, we also wanted to ensure that we were aligning the professional learning that we currently had the capacity to provide to our practice profile as well. So our next step, once we developed the practice profile in the tool, was to catalog all the professional learning that we were providing as a division. So we did so and created this comprehensive catalog of professional learning that our staff supports and provides across the state. detailing things like the description, staff outcomes, student outcomes, some logistical types of things, but most importantly, the core elements that that is linked to. What we were beginning to get a picture of is what are the important things that districts need to be doing to support students on their pathway to graduation. Based on what those important things are, where are the greatest area of needs within local LEAs and charter schools? And then second, how does our infrastructure and professional learning capacity align to those needs? And transitioning back to the practice profile momentarily, you'll notice that there is also an additional tab on this tool that districts and charter schools complete to identify, based on their assessment of need, to identify the core element that they will be focused specifically on for improvement over the course of the year. They share what that core element is. And then, as a result of their choosing of a core element, these tabs on the tool are populated based on our catalog with the professional learning that is aligned to that particular element. So what this gives is a district an opportunity to systematically identify some root causes related to graduation gaps, develop some plans to support those root causes, and then communicate to us what professional learning is going to be most salient, helpful for them as they begin the implementation of these plans the following year. Our professional learning plan as a division then is based on the data that we're able to get from districts from their self-assessment process that is based on a practice profile. And our plans as we provide professional learning is really with the intentional purpose of developing regional and local capacity to continue to support all of the training and coaching that's required for effective transfer. One example of how we do that, you can see these geographical data visualizations. They show where districts determined root cause was associated with the core element of research-based instruction and practices, so our core element 5, and that specifically that they required professional learning related to math in order to support and implement their improvement plans. So we can use these data as we think about where do we want to schedule these trainings, what districts do we want to partner with to build the capacity to continue to provide these trainings on their own. So again, we're using the practice profile to evolve into a self-assessment, to identify root cause, to identify training needs, and then to communicate those training needs back to us so that we can ensure that our infrastructure is aligned to local contexts and needs. What we also do is we've developed a tool to then communicate back with districts our aligned professional learning plan. And to do so, we go back to our identified core elements of the practice profile. And so this tool allows districts to locate the professional learning that is most aligned to their own specific root causes and aligned to the core elements that they've identified. So they use this tool to input straight from this is really directly from their practice profile, what they determined the core element that their priority was. And as they select the core element that was their priority, this tool is then populated with all of the professional learning that we as a division are offering that's related to that. It also populates with the dates, location, registration information. All these are hyperlinks as well, so they can, if they want to find out more about that, they can go hyperlink to our catalog. So to summarize, the development of a practice profile has added immense value to the work we're engaged in the Exceptional Children's Division. It's allowed us to clearly define the work of special education as it's related to supporting students on the path to graduation. It's supported our ability to clearly articulate what that work should look like. It's helped LEAs determine their own local root causes associated with graduation gaps. It's allowed them to communicate that need back to us. And finally, it's allowed us to take those data and develop an infrastructure that is intentionally aligned with LEA need, and then communicate that alignment back.